The pregnant young woman ran to the group of bikers. "He swore he would kill me today." What the Hells Angels did at the hospital gate made the news. Rain hammered the asphalt outside St. Mary's Hospital in Portland, Oregon, as 12 chrome motorcycles roared into the emergency entrance like thunder itself. Leather-clad bikers formed a human wall around a trembling young woman clutching her swollen belly, her face streaked with tears and rain. Security guards froze. Nurses pressed against windows, because what happened next would shatter everything this quiet neighborhood thought it knew about the men society fears most. Behind those hospital doors, a monster waited, and these outlaws had just declared war. The coffee at Riverside Diner had gone cold an hour ago, but 23-year-old Emma Hayes didn't notice. Her hands trembled as she stared at the ultrasound photo on the worn Formica table, the black and white image of her 7-month-old baby girl swimming in her vision. Outside, the grey December sky over Portland matched the hollow feeling in her chest. Her phone buzzed for the 14th time. Marcus. She didn't need to look at the screen to know the messages were getting more threatening. 3 years of his manipulation, his control, his violence, had taught her to read his patterns like a survival manual. Today was different, though. Today he'd found out she was planning to leave. The diner door chimed. Emma's heart stopped, but it wasn't Marcus. Instead, a mountain of a man in a leather vest walked in, his graying beard reaching his chest, patches covering his jacket that read Hells Angels and Portland Chapter. 3 more men followed, their boots heavy on the checkerboard floor. Emma had grown up in Portland's suburban bubble, where people like this existed only in movies and news reports. Her mother had raised her to cross the street when she saw motorcycles, to never make eye contact. But something in the way the lead biker smiled at Betty, the 60-year-old waitress, something in how gently he held the door for an elderly couple leaving, made her prejudices crack just slightly. Before continuing, I want to ask you something that will help more people hear stories like Emma's. If you believe everyone deserves a second chance at safety, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel, because every week we share real stories of courage that remind us heroes don't always wear capes. Now, back to what happened when Emma's worst nightmare walked through that door. Her phone exploded with notifications, message after message from Marcus. "I see your car. You think you can hide? I'm coming for you. You and that baby are mine." Emma's blood turned to ice water. She looked out the rain-streaked window and saw his black Ford truck pulling into the parking lot, the same truck he'd used to follow her to work, to her doctor's appointments, to her mother's house. The door slammed open. Marcus stood 6'2", his face red with rage, veins bulging in his neck. In 3 years, Emma had learned to make herself small, invisible, compliant. But today, with their daughter growing inside her, something ancient and protective surged through her veins. "You're coming home. Now." His voice was quiet, controlled, which Emma knew meant he was at his most dangerous. The diner went silent. Betty the waitress dropped a plate. "No," Emma whispered, then louder. "No, Marcus. I'm done." His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist, with the practiced grip of someone who'd done this before. Emma cried out, and that's when the lead biker stood up. His chair scraped against linoleum like a gunshot. "Brother," he said, his voice deep and calm, "I think the lady asked you to leave." His name patch read Hawk. His eyes were steel gray and absolutely certain. Marcus turned, sizing up the situation. 4 bikers, all standing now, all watching. For a moment, Emma thought he might back down. Instead, he smiled that smile she knew too well, the one that came before the worst beatings. "This is between me and my girlfriend, my baby. Mind your own damn business." He squeezed Emma's wrist harder, making her gasp. Hawk moved closer, and Emma noticed something. Despite his size, despite the intimidating patches and the grey beard, his eyes held something unexpected: gentleness. "Young man," he said quietly, "you got 3 seconds to let her go before this becomes a situation you can't walk away from." Marcus released Emma's wrist and pulled something from his jacket. The glint of metal made Emma's stomach drop, but before Marcus could fully draw the gun, Hawk's hand clamped down on his wrist with the precision of someone who'd been in more fights than Marcus could imagine. 2 other bikers moved in, and suddenly Marcus was being escorted out, his feet barely touching the ground. "Portland PD is on their way," Betty called from behind the counter, her hand shaking as she held her phone. "I got it all on the security camera." Emma collapsed into her booth, her whole body shaking. Hawk sat down across from her, his massive frame somehow making her feel safer rather than threatened. "You okay, miss?" "He's going to kill me," Emma said, the words she'd held inside for 3 years finally breaking free. "When the police leave, when everyone's gone, he'll find me. He always finds me. And today he swore it was the last day I'd keep him from his baby." Hawk's expression darkened. "You got somewhere safe to go?" Emma thought of her mother's house where Marcus had broken in twice, her friend's apartment where he'd found her in 6 hours, the women's shelter that had a 3-week waiting list. She shook her head. Through the window, she could see Marcus in the parking lot, being detained by arriving police officers. But Emma knew how this story went. He'd post bail, probably tonight. He had money from his father's dealership, and he had lawyers. He always walked free. "I have a doctor's appointment," Emma heard herself saying. "At St. Mary's Hospital in an hour. High-risk pregnancy checkup." Her voice cracked. "He knows the schedule. He has a key to my apartment. He'll be waiting there, or he'll follow me from the hospital." She looked at Hawk with desperate eyes. "I don't know what to do." Hawk pulled out his phone, typing something quickly. "What's your name?" "Emma Hayes." "Emma, I'm Hawk. Been with the Angels for 23 years. He showed her his phone screen, a group chat with dozens of names. "You're going to make that appointment, and you're going to be safe." His eyes met hers with absolute certainty. "I promise you that. On my patch, on my brother's. I promise you that." If this part left you feeling heartbroken, comment, "Stay strong, Emma." The police took Emma's statement at Riverside Diner, while rain continued to drum against the windows. Officer Lisa Chen, a petite woman with kind eyes, documented everything. The bruises on Emma's wrist from Marcus's grip still visible, already darkening to purple. Through the window, Emma watched Marcus being loaded into a patrol car, his eyes finding hers with a look that promised retribution. "He'll make bail," Emma said flatly. Officer Chen didn't disagree. "We're filing for an emergency restraining order," Officer Chen explained, her voice gentle but honest. "But Miss Hayes, I need you to understand, a piece of paper can't stop someone who's determined. Do you have somewhere safe?" Hawk stepped forward. "She does." "Now." He handed Officer Chen a business card. Emma glimpsed the words, "Hell's Angels MC Portland Chapter," before the officer pocketed it with a knowing nod that surprised Emma. "We'll make sure she gets to her appointment, and somewhere Marcus can't find her." Officer Chen studied Hawk for a long moment, then did something Emma never expected. She smiled, small and grateful. "Thank you, Hawk. Tell your brothers I said hello." She turned to Emma. "The Angels run one of the most effective domestic violence protection networks in Oregon. You're in good hands." Emma's worldview tilted. Everything she thought she knew about the men in leather vests was crumbling. An hour later, she found herself in the passenger seat of Hawk's truck, following 11 motorcycles through Portland's rain-slicked streets towards St. Mary's Hospital. The bikes formed a protective convoy around her, their engines rumbling like protective thunder. "Why are you helping me?" Emma finally asked, her hands resting on her belly where her daughter kicked actively, as if sensing her mother's stress. Hawk kept his eyes on the road, his weathered hands steady on the wheel. 28 years ago, my sister Sarah was in your exact position, pregnant, terrified, running from a man who swore he'd kill her." His jaw tightened. "I was young, stupid, thought I could handle it alone. Didn't ask my brothers for help because I was ashamed my family had that problem." He was quiet for a moment. "She didn't make it to her baby shower. He found her in a Walgreens parking lot." Emma's breath caught. "I'm so sorry. Her baby survived. My niece Rebecca is 27 now. Got 2 kids of her own. But Sarah never got to meet her." Hawk's voice was rough with old grief. "After that, the Portland chapter made a pact. We see a woman in trouble, we help. No questions, no judgment, no hesitation. We've helped 43 women leave dangerous situations in the last decade. Every single one is still alive." They pulled into St. Mary's Hospital parking lot just as Emma's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number made her blood freeze. "Bailed out. See you soon, sweetheart. You can't hide behind bikers forever." She showed Hawk with shaking hands. He read it, then calmly typed a response on his own phone. Within seconds, the motorcycles that had been spread across the parking lot converged on the hospital's main entrance, forming a semicircle. More bikes arrived, their riders wearing the same patches as Hawk. Emma counted them through the windshield, 12, 15, 20 bikers creating a human barrier between her and the street. "Let me tell you how this works," Hawk said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. You walk in that hospital with your head high. You get your checkup. You focus on that baby girl. And every single person out there will make sure Marcus doesn't get within 100 yards of you. We've been doing this a long time, Emma. We're very good at it. As Emma walked toward the hospital entrance, flanked by two bikers who introduced themselves as Grizz and Tiny, despite Tiny being 6'5", she felt something she hadn't experienced in 3 years: hope. But that feeling shattered when she saw Marcus's black Ford truck pulling into the far end of the parking lot. He stepped out, and even from a distance, Emma could see the rage in his posture. He started walking toward the hospital entrance, his hand in his jacket pocket where Emma knew he kept his gun. The restraining order was worthless, just as she'd known it would be, but something happened that Emma would never forget. The bikers didn't move aggressively. They didn't shout or threaten. Instead, they simply stood, shoulder to shoulder, forming an impenetrable wall. Hawk stepped forward, his hands visible and empty, his voice carrying across the parking lot. "Marcus, you got a restraining order violation happening here. Police are already on their way. We called them the second you pulled in." He gestured to the security cameras pointed at the parking lot. "All being recorded. Now you can walk away or you can get arrested again. Your choice, brother." Marcus stood frozen, calculating. Emma could see his mind working, weighing his options. Then she saw something that made her stomach drop. He smiled, that terrible smile. "This isn't over," he called out. "I'll wait. I've got all the time in the world. She has to come out eventually. She has to go home eventually. And those bikers, they can't protect her forever." He got back in his truck but didn't leave the parking lot. Just parked at the far end, engine running, watching, waiting. Emma felt her knees weaken. He was right. She had to leave eventually. She had to sleep somewhere. And Marcus had the patience of a predator who'd cornered his prey. "Emma," Hawk said quietly, guiding her toward the entrance, "trust the process. We've handled worse than Marcus Thompson. Way worse. Now go take care of that baby." Checkup took 40 minutes. Dr. Rachel Morrison, Emma's OB-GYN, noticed her distress immediately. When Emma explained the situation, tears streaming down her face, the doctor made 2 phone calls. The first was to hospital security. The second was to someone Emma couldn't hear. "Your baby is healthy and strong," Dr. Morrison said, showing Emma the ultrasound screen where her daughter's heartbeat pulsed steady and sure. 142 beats per minute. Perfect. "But Emma, your blood pressure is concerning. Stress like this isn't good for either of you." "I know," Emma whispered, watching her daughter move on the screen, sucking her tiny thumb. "I just don't know how to keep her safe when he's out there waiting." Dr. Morrison squeezed her hand. "You're not alone in this. Trust me." Something in her voice made Emma look up, but before she could ask what the doctor meant, there was a knock at the door. A woman Emma had never seen before stepped in, wearing jeans and a leather jacket. Her patch read, "Hells Angels MC Salem Chapter." Write in the comments, have you ever judged someone by their appearance? I want to know your opinion about Hawk right now. The woman who entered Emma's hospital room didn't look like any biker Emma had imagined. She was maybe 45, with kind brown eyes and graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her leather jacket bore the same patches as Hawk's, but also additional ones that read, "Property of no one," and "Survivor." "Emma." "Hayes?" the woman said, her voice warm and steady. "I'm Diana. Dr. Morrison is my cousin, and Hawk called me about your situation." She pulled up a chair beside Emma's examination table. "I run a network of safe houses across Oregon and Washington, women who've been exactly where you are now, and I'm here to tell you something important. Marcus Thompson doesn't get to win this. Not today, not ever." Emma's throat tightened. "He's waiting outside. Even with all those bikers, even with security, he's just sitting there in his truck. He knows I have to leave eventually. He knows where I live, where my mom lives, where I work. He's right. You can't protect me forever." Diana's smile was small, but fierce. "Honey, you'd be surprised what forever looks like when you've got the angels on your side. But more importantly, we're not just protecting you, we're getting you out. New city, new identity if needed, new start. We've done it 43 times. Success rate? 100%. I can't just disappear," Emma protested, her mind racing. "My job, my mother, my whole life is here. And what about money? I'm a waitress. I have maybe $800 saved. Your mother will understand. We'll help you contact her safely. As for money and job, that's what the network is for." Diana pulled out her phone, showing Emma a spreadsheet. "We have connections with women's advocacy groups, job placement programs, housing assistance. One of our sisters in Seattle runs an apartment complex, Holds units specifically for situations like yours. Another runs a cafe, always has positions open. We take care of our own. Dr. Morrison interjected, Emma, I've delivered 12 babies for women Diana's network protected. Every single one of those children is safe, healthy, and growing up without violence. Every single mother is thriving. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a proven system. Emma looked down at the ultrasound photo in her hands, her daughter's perfect profile captured in grainy black and white. She thought about the future she'd imagined before Marcus, before the fear became her constant companion. What's the catch? She whispered. No catch, Diana said firmly. But you need to commit. Completely. No contact with Marcus, no going back to your old apartment, no wavering. These men, they rely on women doubting themselves, going back. We've lost women who change their minds at the last minute. I won't let that happen to you. Before Emma could respond, her phone buzzed. Another text from Marcus. I can see the window to your exam room from here, 3rd floor, east wing. That's a pretty hospital gown. Emma's hands started shaking so badly she dropped the phone. Diana picked it up, read the message, and her expression hardened. She stepped into the hallway and Emma could hear her speaking rapidly to someone. Minutes later, Hawk appeared at the door with 2 other bikers. Change of plans, Hawk said, his voice all business now. Marcus just escalated. This from harassment to stalking with that text. We're moving you now. Hospital has a service exit that connects to the parking garage. Diana's van is there. We're going to walk you down, you're getting in that van, and you're leaving Portland tonight. Tonight? Emma's voice cracked. I don't even have clothes, my things. We'll handle it, Diana said gently, but firmly. One of our sisters will go to your apartment with police escort. Pack what you need. Your mum. We'll have her meet you in Seattle next week, somewhere safe. But Emma, right now, this second, we need you to choose. Stay in Portland where Marcus knows every move you make, or trust us and start over. Emma looked at Dr. Morrison, who nodded encouragingly. She looked at Hawk, this stranger who'd become her shield. She looked at Diana, a woman who'd clearly survived her own nightmare and turned it into purpose. Then she placed her hand on her belly, feeling her daughter move beneath her palm. Okay, Emma whispered. Okay, let's go. What happened next moved with military precision. Dr. Morrison discharged Emma through the hospital system, noting her treatment was complete. Diana produced a wheelchair, hospital policy for discharged pregnant patients. Hawk and his brothers formed a moving corridor around them as they navigated through sterile hallways that smelled of antiseptic and floor polish. They took a service elevator Emma didn't even know existed, descending into the bowels of St. Mary's where loading docks and maintenance corridors formed a hidden world beneath the healing above. Diana's van, a nondescript grey Honda Odyssey that could have belonged to any suburban mom, waited with its engine running. Wait, Emma said as they approached the van. Through the parking garage's opening, she could see Marcus's truck still parked in the main lot, his silhouette visible in the driver's seat. He's going to notice when I don't come out the front. Hawk smiled, and for the first time, Emma saw the strategist beneath the biker exterior. He's watching the front entrance where 20 of my brothers are putting on quite a show. Revving engines, having what looks like a heated discussion. Very distracting. Meanwhile, 6 more brothers are positioned between here and the exit, ready to intercept if he somehow notices. Marcus is smart, but he's not smarter than 40 years of collective experience. Emma climbed into the van's back seat, which had been modified with pillows and blankets, a cooler of water and snacks, everything she might need for a long drive. Diana slid into the driver's seat while another woman Emma hadn't met took the passenger side. This is Rachel, Diana said, gesturing to the passenger. Former Marine, currently works security. She's going to make sure we get to Seattle safely. Rachel turned and gave Emma a reassuring nod, and Emma noticed the calm competence in her eyes. Hawk leaned through the window. Emma Hayes, you got my number. You got Diana's. Number? You need anything, day or night, you call. We're not abandoning you. We're giving you a chance at the life you deserve. He handed her a manila envelope. Burner phone inside, $500 cash, list of contacts, instructions for getting set up in Seattle. Diana's got the rest. Tears streamed down Emma's face. I don't even know how to thank you. Thank us by living, Hawk said simply. Thank us by raising that beautiful girl to be strong and safe. Thank us by remembering that when the world tells you bikers are dangerous, sometimes the most dangerous thing we do is refuse to look away when someone needs help. The van pulled out of the parking garage just as Emma's phone buzzed one final time. Marcus, still texting. Where are you? Answer me. Emma powered off the phone, removed the SIM card like Diana instructed, and dropped both into the bag Diana provided. That chapter of her life was closing. They drove north on I-5 as December darkness fell over Oregon. Emma watched Portland's lights disappear in the rearview mirror, each mile carrying her further from 3 years of fear and closer to an unknown future. Her daughter kicked, and Emma whispered to her belly, "We're going to be okay, baby girl. We're finally going to be okay." Write in the comments, "You are not alone." Maybe a real-life Emma will read this today and decide to ask for help. 3 hours into the drive, somewhere past Olympia, Washington, Diana pulled into a rest stop. The December night was cold and clear, stars visible in a way they never were in Portland's light pollution. Emma had been silent for most of the journey, processing everything that had happened in the span of 6 hours. "How are you holding up?" Rachel asked, handing Emma a bottle of water and a sandwich from the cooler. Her voice was gentle despite her military bearing. "I don't know," Emma admitted. "Part of me keeps expecting to wake up and find out this was a dream, that I'm still at Riverside Diner, still trapped, still alone. How is this real? How do strangers just decide to save someone?" Diana leaned against the van, her breath creating small clouds in the winter air. "We're not strangers, Emma. We're sisters who haven't met yet. Every woman in our network has a story. Mine started 20 years ago in Boise, Idaho." She paused, her eyes distant. "His name was Derek. Charming, successful, everything I thought I wanted. By the time I realized what he really was, I was pregnant with twins. And too scared to leave." Emma's breath caught. "What happened?" "I tried to leave 3 times. Each time he found me. The 4th time, I was 8 months pregnant, bleeding from where he'd shoved me into a kitchen counter. I made it to a gas station, called 911 and collapsed." Diana's voice was steady, but Emma could hear the old pain beneath. "The paramedics who showed up, one of them was a Hell's Angel named Bear. Huge guy. Looked terrifying. While his partner worked on me, Bear made a phone call. By the time I got out of the hospital, 12 bikers were parked outside. They'd found me a place in Portland, paid first and last month's rent, connected me with a lawyer who worked pro bono. Bear's wife Sarah helped me deliver my twins a week later. 2 beautiful boys, Liam and Lucas. They're 19 now, both in college, both completely safe and whole." Rachel added her own story. "Afghanistan veteran, survived 2 tours, came home to a man who nearly killed me in my own living room. The angels found me in a VA hospital, gave me purpose when I thought I had none left. Now I protect other women because I know what it feels like to need protecting." Emma wiped tears from her eyes. "Does it ever stop? The fear? The looking over your shoulder?" "Yes," Diana said firmly. "It takes time, therapy helps. So does distance, new routines, building a life he's not part of. But Emma, I need you to understand something crucial. The first few weeks are the most dangerous. Statistics show that's when abusers are most likely to escalate. Marcus is going to look for you. He's going to be angry, desperate. That's why we're taking every precaution." Back in the van, Emma noticed something she'd missed before, a small wooden box on the seat beside her. Diana saw her looking. "Open it." Inside were letters, dozens of them. Emma pulled one out at random. The handwriting was shaky, but determined. "To whoever reads this, my name was Jennifer. The angels saved my life in 2015. Today, 5 years later, I'm a nurse. I have full custody of my son, and I haven't seen my abuser in 4 years. If you're reading this, you're scared. I was too. Trust them. Trust yourself. You deserve this chance." It was dated and signed. Emma read another and another, each one a testimony from a woman who'd sat exactly where Emma sat now, terrified and hopeful, running toward an uncertain future that had to be better than the certain danger behind them. By the time they crossed into Seattle City, limits, Emma had read 15 letters. Each one ended the same way. "You're not alone." The safe house was in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood, a modest 3-bedroom apartment above a vintage bookstore. The building's owner, a woman named Margaret, who was introduced as one of our guardian angels, met them at a back entrance. She was 70 if she was a day, with silver hair and eyes that had seen everything. "Welcome home, dear," Margaret said, handing Emma a set of keys. "Second floor, fully furnished, stocked kitchen, Wi-Fi password on the fridge. You'll be safe here. This building has excellent security and I'm a light sleeper with a very loud alarm system." The apartment was small but perfect. Clean sheets on the bed, towels in the bathroom, food in the pantry. Someone had even set up a nursery in the second bedroom, a crib and changing table, tiny clothes in the dresser. Emma stood in the doorway of that room and finally let herself break down, sobbing for everything she'd lost and everything she was gaining. Diana held her while she cried. Tomorrow we'll get you set up with a new doctor. Transfer your medical records. Day after, job interview at the cafe I mentioned. Next week, your mum can visit. Somewhere Marcus won't think to look. One day at a time, Emma. That's how we do this. That night, Emma lay in an unfamiliar bed in an unfamiliar city, her hands on her belly, where her daughter slept peacefully. For the first time in 3 years, Emma locked her door. Anne felt actually safe. No keys Marcus had copies of, no windows he knew how to jimmy open, no proximity that made escape impossible. Her new phone buzzed. A text from Hawk. Portland PD issued a warrant for Marcus's arrest, violation of restraining order, stalking, illegal possession of a firearm on hospital property caught on camera. He won't be bothering you anytime soon. Sleep well, Emma. You earned it. Emma texted back 2 words, thank you. But it felt inadequate for what these strangers had done for the second chance they'd handed her wrapped in leather and motorcycle exhaust. She pulled out the letters from the box and read one more before sleep. This one was different, newer, the handwriting steady and confident. My name is Diana. 20 years ago, the angels saved me and my twin boys. Today, I save others. This isn't just about escape. It's about transformation. The woman you are today, scared and running, she's brave. But the woman you'll become, strong and free, she's going to change the world. I did. So can you. Welcome to your new life. Emma fell asleep with that letter on her chest, her daughter kicking gently, Seattle's unfamiliar sounds drifting through the window. Somewhere in Portland, Marcus Thompson was being arrested, his control shattered. And somewhere in this city, Emma Hayes was beginning to believe she might actually survive this, that she might actually thrive. The next morning brought challenges Emma hadn't anticipated. Reality settled in as she sat at the small kitchen table, drinking coffee Diana had left in the pantry. She had no job, no real plan beyond trust the process. Her entire life fit into a duffel bag that someone else had packed, and she was 300 miles from everything familiar. But she also woke up without bruises for the first time in months, without fear, without checking her phone every 3 minutes to see if Marcus was tracking her location. That alone felt revolutionary. Diana arrived at 9 with Rachel and another woman who introduced herself as Sarah, Bear's wife. We're your Seattle team, Sarah explained, settling at the table with a folder full of documents. Diana told you about the cafe job. Interviews at 2. Owner's name is Patricia. She knows your situation, very understanding. What about Marcus? Emma asked, the question that had kept her up despite her exhaustion. The arrest, is it enough? Diana's expression was honest. He posted bail this morning, but there's good news. His father, who runs that car dealership Marcus was always bragging about, apparently has had enough. He's requiring Marcus to enter a court-mandated anger management program and move back home under supervision as a condition of keeping his trust fund. Marcus's lawyer is pushing for a plea deal that includes mandatory counseling and a permanent restraining order. If you believe that telling stories like this can save lives, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. 3 months passed like a dream Emma was afraid to wake from. Seattle's spring arrived with cherry blossoms and gentle rain, so different from Portland's weather, yet familiar enough to feel like home. Emma's belly had grown round and full, her daughter active and healthy according to Dr. Yuki Tanaka, her new obstetrician who specialized in high-risk pregnancies. The cafe job Patricia had offered turned into something more. Emma discovered she had a talent for creating Instagram-worthy latte. Art and her warm interactions with customers made her invaluable. Patricia, a 60-year-old former corporate lawyer who'd opened the cafe as a second act, took Emma under her wing like a daughter. You remind me of myself 30 years ago, Patricia said one afternoon as Emma practiced her 100th Rosetta pattern. Running from something, running towards something. Not quite sure which mattered more. You're going to be fine, Emma. Better than fine. Emma's mother, Janet, had visited 4 times, each visit carefully coordinated through the network's security protocols. Their relationship, strained by years of Marcus's isolation tactics, was healing. Janet cried the first time she saw the nursery Emma had decorated, painted soft yellow with clouds on the ceiling. I should have done more, Janet said, holding Emma's hands. I should have pushed harder. seen through his manipulation, protected you better. You did what you could, Mom, Emma replied, and meant it. She was learning. Through the trauma therapy Diana had connected her with, that blame was complicated, and healing required forgiveness, including forgiving herself for staying as long as she had. The Hells Angels network had become Emma's extended family. Diana checked in weekly. Hawk called every Sunday. Updates from Portland, where Marcus's legal situation had progressed exactly as predicted. Plea deal accepted, mandatory counseling, permanent restraining order, no contact provision. He'd moved to California. With his father's business, 3 states away from Emma's new life. He'll always be a threat in some form, Hawk told Emma honestly during one call. Guys like Marcus don't change overnight. Maybe never, but you're protected, documented, safe, and every day that passes, his legal consequences get more severe if he violates that order. You built a moat, Emma. Now you just live your life behind it. On a warm April morning, Emma's water broke while she was making a cappuccino for a regular customer named Tom, who immediately called Diana while driving Emma to Swedish Medical Center. The birth was long, 22 hours that tested every ounce of Emma's newfound strength. But at 3:47 a.m. on April 15th, Diana Rose Hayes entered the world at 7 pounds 6 ounces, screaming her arrival with healthy lungs. Emma named her after Diana, the woman who'd saved her life. When Diana visited later that morning, finding Emma exhausted but radiant with her daughter in her arms, she cried for the first time Emma had ever witnessed. "You didn't have to do that," Diana whispered, gently touching the baby's tiny hand. "Yes, I did," Emma said firmly. "You gave me and my daughter our lives. The least I can do is make sure everyone who meets her knows there are heroes in this world, and sometimes they wear leather jackets." The hospital room filled over the next hours. Patricia brought flowers and promises of flexible work schedule. Margaret brought hand-knitted baby blankets. Rachel brought a teddy bear wearing a tiny leather vest that made everyone laugh and cry simultaneously. Janet stayed by Emma's side, a grandmother meeting her granddaughter, years of worry finally easing from her shoulders. Hawk drove up from Portland with Sarah and Bear, the man who'd saved Diana 20 years ago. Bear was exactly as described, huge, terrifying looking, with the gentlest touch as he held baby Diana. "Another generation safe," he said softly. "Another victory." 6 months later, on a crisp October afternoon, Emma stood in Volunteer Park watching Diana Rose take her first wobbly steps between Emma and Janet. The Seattle skyline stretched behind them, the Space Needle visible in the distance. Emma had just signed the lease to purchase the apartment above the bookstore. Patricia had made her cafe manager with a salary that made home ownership possible. Her phone buzzed with a text from the Angels Network group chat. 43 women strong now, soon to be 44. A new woman in Spokane needed help. Emma had volunteered to drive there next weekend, bringing supplies and the box of letters that now included her own testimony. "What did you write in your letter?" Diana had asked when Emma added it to the box. Emma had smiled. "I wrote that the scariest moment of my life was running toward a group of bikers I'd been taught to fear, and the best decision I ever made was trusting them anyway. I wrote that heroes don't always look like we expect. Sometimes they have grey beards and leather vests. Sometimes they've survived their own nightmares and turned survival into purpose. I wrote that she's not alone. None of us are." Now, watching her daughter laugh as Janet made silly faces, Emma thought about Marcus. The therapy had helped her process that complicated tangle of emotions, the man she'd loved, the monster he'd become, the relief that Diana would never know his shadow. She'd learned he was still in California, still in counseling, still legally barred from contact. The restraining order was permanent. Some nights Emma still woke up checking locks. Some days a man's raised voice in the cafe made her heart race. Trauma didn't disappear, it just became manageable. But those moments grew further apart, replaced by new memories of safety, community, love. As the sun set over Seattle, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Emma's phone rang. Hawk's name appeared on the screen. "Hey, Hawk," Emma answered, bouncing Diana Rose on her hip. Emma got news from Portland PD. Marcus violated his parole, failed a drug test, and got involved in a fight. Judge revoked his plea deal. He's looking at actual prison time now, 18 months minimum. His father finally cut him off completely. It's over, Emma. Really over. Emma should have felt triumph or relief or vindication. Instead, she felt something unexpected. Pity. for the man Marcus could have been if he'd chosen different paths. But more than that, she felt free, completely, utterly free. Thank you, Hawk, for everything. For that day at the diner, for the protection, for giving me and Diana our chance. Emma Hayes, you gave yourself that chance when you said no. We just made sure you stayed alive to see it through. How's my namesake doing? Emma laughed, watching her daughter chase a butterfly with unsteady steps. She's perfect, strong, brave, and completely safe. Everything I could have hoped for. Good, that's good. Listen, we're having our annual charity ride next month. Toys for Kids fundraiser for domestic violence shelters. Would you and baby Diana like to come be our guests of honor? Emma thought about the woman she'd been 10 months ago, terrified in a diner booth, certain she was going to die. She thought about the woman she was now, employed, housed, safe, raising her daughter in a community that protected them both. She thought about the 43 other women in the network, each with similar transformation stories. We'd love to, Emma said. And Hawk, I'm bringing my story. I want to speak. If there's even one woman out there who needs to hear that escape is possible, that strangers can become family, that the men society fears saved my life, I want to tell her. Hawk's voice was thick with emotion. Sarah would have loved you, Emma, my sister. She would have loved knowing her story saved so many others. As night fell over Seattle, Emma carried her daughter home to their apartment above the bookstore. She passed the vintage shop where Margaret waved from the window. She nodded to Rachel, who was doing her evening security check of the building. She saw Diana's car parked outside, bringing dinner as she did twice a week. Inside the apartment, Emma laid Diana Rose in her crib, watching her daughter's eyes grow heavy with sleep. The nursery walls were covered now with photos. Emma's first day at the cafe, Diana Rose's first smile, the group photo from the hospital when she was born, surrounded by angels. You're going to grow up knowing something important, Emma whispered to her sleeping daughter. You're going to know that family isn't always blood, that heroes exist in unexpected places, that your mama was brave enough to run toward help even when everything she'd been taught said to run away. And you're going to know you were worth every scary moment of that journey. Emma pulled out her journal, the one her therapist had suggested she keep. She wrote about the day's small victories, Diana's first steps, the promotion Patricia had offered, the news about Marcus's imprisonment, but she also wrote about gratitude for the leather-clad strangers who'd seen her fear and responded with protection, for the network of survivors who'd turned trauma into purpose, for the second chance she'd been given to live without fear. The last entry for the night was simple. 10 months ago, I ran to a group of bikers and begged for help. Today, I ran toward my future. Tomorrow, I'm going to help someone else run toward theirs. This is what freedom looks like. This is what survival becomes when you refuse to give up. This is what happens when the people society fears choose love over indifference. This is my story, and it's just beginning. Emma closed the journal and looked out her window at Seattle's nighttime skyline. Somewhere out there, another woman was planning her escape. Another Diana was forming. Another network of strangers was preparing to become family. And Emma Hayes, once a terrified waitress with nowhere to run, was ready to be part of someone else's salvation. The Hells Angels had taught her something profound, that the most radical act in a violent world is to protect the vulnerable. That leather jackets and motorcycle engines could mean safety instead of danger. That sometimes the people society dismisses, fears, or overlooks are exactly the ones who show up when everyone else looks away. Emma's phone buzzed one final time. A message in the network group chat from the new woman in Spokane, the one Emma would meet next weekend. Is it really safe? Can I really trust them? 42 women responded instantly with variations of the same message. Emma added hers last. Yes, I promise you, yes. We've all been where you are. We're all here because strangers became family. Come home, we're waiting. And in that moment, Emma understood the true miracle of her story. It wasn't just that she'd been saved. It was that she'd been transformed into a savior. That her terror had become someone else's hope. That the day she'd run sobbing into a diner, convinced she was about to die, had instead become the day she'd learned how to truly live. The rain started falling outside, Seattle's familiar lullaby. Emma checked Diana Rose one final time, kissed her daughter's forehead and climbed into bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new growth, new opportunities to prove that survival wasn't just about escaping danger, but about building something beautiful from the ashes of trauma. As sleep claimed her, Emma's last thought was of Hawk, standing in that hospital parking lot, making a promise he'd kept absolutely. "You're going to be safe, I promise you that." And he had been right. She was safe, she was whole, she was free, and she was going to spend the rest of her life making sure other women heard that same promise and believed it was possible. Because Emma Hayes knew something now that she hadn't known 10 months ago. Heroes exist, and sometimes they ride motorcycles,